Hey there, you're listening to Not Another TV Podcast. This is episode 23, the week of October 20th, 2023. My name's Drew Koenig. With me, as always, is my co-host, Mads Sassy. Mads, how we doing?
Hey guys, how's it going?
So, I don't know if y'all listened to last week's episode. If you haven't, you can just not.
We've been having technical difficulties.
We've had some difficulties. But you know what? We're hoping to get back on track. Just, leave it as it may. Leave it as it may.
It is what it is.
It is
That's
indeed
what I
what
always
it
say.
is. So, how is your week?
It's been busy. Today was a no comprende brain day. I had an assignment, but my brain was just like, nope, I don't know what that is. I don't understand that, even though I did. But like my brain was just like, no, I'm revolting. So instead, I planned a joint birthday party with two other friends of mine that have birthdays in November for the first weekend in December. And we like got pretty much everything mapped out. And I was like, oh, I should probably do my actual work assignment. That's okay. It's fine. It's Friday. Nobody cares.
Yeah, who cares?
But on another note, I enjoyed planning a birthday party. That is a month away.
That is nice.
How was your week?
Fairly busy.
We're getting into the boozy holidays.
We are. It's also weird. I think I mentioned to you that my liquor manager is retiring very soon.
Oh yes.
So we're all in like this weird area of like, yeah. It doesn't matter what you do. Screw it.
As long as the place don't burn down, right?
Those places don't burn down. Just do whatever. I don't care. We did not have. There's no news. No news in the world. Notably newsless this week. As we all know. So we're just going to skip it. Because there's no strike news and there's no TV news. So let's just move on into the GOAT. Because, like, guys, real time, we recorded like 4 days ago. We did the last episode like 4 days ago.
Yeah, that's what happens when one of us goes on vacation. Like a real vacation, not a state vacation.
So we are just going to jump right into the GOAT. So the GOAT is a weekly segment we do here on the podcast where myself and Mads nominate a best TV character or episode of all time and pit them up against each other on a poll on Twitter and TikTok. Last week, I nominated The Haunting of Hill House, episode 5, The Bent Neck Lady, and Mads nominated Doctor Who, season 2, episode 4, The Girl in the Fireplace.
Yes.
And it was a close call. But Mads won this round. So
you get to go first.
I get to go first. Yes. So kind of to continue off of last week, since we're still going to be talking about Fall of the House of Usher. Kind of this theme of devastating and sudden deaths.
Okay.
And so I was thinking about that a little bit today, which kind of brought me to like one of the biggest TV episodes about this and the kind of tragic and unpredictable nature of death, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, season 5, episode 16, entitled "The Body."
Yes.
Which is this really infamous episode of Buffy coming home and finding the body of her mother dead, who had already been suffering from some minor medical problems throughout the season and had finally died in this really surprising and unexpected way. In stark contrast to the kind of big action that like Buffy the Vampire Slayer was kind of famous for, with like campish fighting and vampires and demons and whatnot. Like, just to have a major recurring character dead by entirely natural causes. Process of coping with grief that springs up from that, which is kind of encapsulated really beautifully by God's most unlikely soldier, Anya, midway through the episode, who just kind of has this mild tantrum about like not understanding why Buffy's mother is just not okay and not getting up and being comforting and not being okay. And the whole episode is just incredibly devastating, and just how very quiet and still it all is. It really is just like one of the better looks of death on TV. So that is my pick. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Season 5, Episode 16, The Body.
All right. Well, my pick kind of sort of vaguely goes in that theme of death. So I'm picking a character. This week we're talking about Our Flag Means Death a bit more. And one of the big things with season 2 has been that Lucius, who was a character that everyone thought died in season 1, wasn't actually dead. He had some traumatic events happen to him and he came back from them. But the whole season, this season, he's been learning to heal and move forward from the trauma of almost dying. And so my pick this week is Lucius Spriggs. He's a very complex character, but he's also a fun, sassy, queer man. And we love that about him. You know, he is quick to give a snide remark, but he's also very vulnerable and sweet when he needs to be or when he can't be anything else. And so I think he's one of the best characters from the show. And a lot of people might argue with me about that because there are so many great characters on Our Flag Means Death. But Lucius Spriggs is definitely one of the more complicated, beautiful characters and allows us to really go on a journey with him this season.
So you can vote for both of these on Twitter and TikTok. You'll have 2 days to vote once it goes live. And be sure to like and share it on whatever social platform you are currently using. So, without further ado, let's move on into the show.
Good little girl, always picking a fight with me. You know that I'm bad, but you're spending the night with me. What do you want from my world? You're a good little girl.
Bad little boy, that's what you're acting like. I really don't buy that you're that kind of guy.
So our first show for this week is we are continuing our rewatch of Adventure Time. Moving on into season 5.
Season 5 goes on and on.
We will be here for ever.
5 years.
5 years. 5 years dungeon. So we're doing season 5, episode 5, All the Little People. Season 5, episode 6, Jake the Dad, and episode 11, Bad Little Boy. So let's start with All the Little People. Which I told you last week that Finn does 2 of the worst things he ever does in the show this season. All the Little People is the first one, where
dude fucks with people's lives.
Yeah, Magic Man gives Finn this collection of miniature versions of all the Adventure Time characters.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a very Magic Man thing to do. Um, I think I mentioned this when we watched the other Magic Man episode, but like Magic Man just loves to show up and fuck with them and then be like, I'm out.
He literally did. He was like, I'm going to secretly put this bag on Finn's belt and walk away without them even realizing I was here.
Yeah. Classic Magic Man. Uh, yeah, and then what springs from that is Finn trying to pair characters together and put them in situations that maybe are not natural or organic to them.
But really, what started this whole thing was they were sitting on a hill having a conversation about people being in relationships and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, Finn says, "What do you think about Ice King and BMO?" And then it evolves into this chaos monster.
Yeah. Well, I said this is one of the worst things Finn ever does, and it is. But I also want to temper that a little bit, or like buffer that by being like, this is very much a teenager giving into id, you know, like just giving into inhibitions a little bit, you know, and not having like a good grasp on like maybe I shouldn't do that, you know, like that voice not quite being active, that the little voice, the part of your conscience where you're like, should I?
Right. Well, and the other thing that really like shows that is that like he's given little figurines of all the people he knows.
Yeah.
And he has relegated them into different classes of quote unquote characters. A, B, and C characters.
Right.
And he's like, the C characters can go back into the bag. And I'm just like, you just threw out some of the most fun people around you because they don't really have anybody they can couple up with. It doesn't matter.
Right. Well, it's the kind of lie you have like when you're that age and even into adulthood where you're like, these are important people, and then there are the not important people. And the way your mind like kind of automatically tries to like classify that. But most people kind of grow out of that there aren't like quote unquote important people.
Yes. And poor little Jake and what's her face? They got broken up by Finn.
Yeah.
I can never remember the unicorn dog.
Lady Rainicorn.
Whatever her name is.
Yeah.
And she can definitely cry when she's upset.
She sure can. Yeah, so much of this episode is just profoundly messed up.
It was also kind of funny that the little figurines, like when Finn like would stop messing around with certain figurines, they would kind of try to move back to doing what they were doing prior to him messing around with them. And so it was kind of showing that like, yes, he was controlling them, but they also had free will.
Right.
And like he had to move some of them forcefully to put them together. And I found that very interesting as well. It was very much like a puppeteer pulling the strings kind of situation. And it was very disturbing.
Yes. Yeah. But it's also a bit of a metatextual episode of like kind of like the nature of like writing ships or like writing characters, but especially writing like relationships. Of being like, yeah, of course, like we would love it for, you know, X and Y character to be together. But that's there is such a thing as like responsible storytelling. and responsible use of characters.
And that's why, in the realm of fan fiction land, I will never touch RPFs, because that is when people are taking real, actual people, not the characters they play, and are saying, who cares what your real life is? I'm going to make it my own.
Right.
Like, no, don't do that, please.
Right.
Because oftentimes, if they want, say, actor A to be with actor B because their characters are together on a television show, and actor A has a wife in real life, they're like, she doesn't matter, we'll kill her. What? I have seen that happen. In the well, I shouldn't say I have seen. I have heard about it happening. When I was in the Schitt's Creek fandom, there were people that would write RPF for Dan Levy and Noah Reed, and they would just do away with Noah's relationship in order to put them together.
Right.
And you're just like, no. Go watch this episode of Adventure Time and you'll find out why that's bad.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah. So let's move on. Let's do Jake the Dad. This
was interesting.
This is a bold episode because it's actively changing like the status quo, right? Of like, yeah, Jake is he just has a bunch of kids now.
Yeah,
like that's just a thing that's here. That we're not gonna try to walk back.
Yeah.
And also, he's not very good at it. Just not very good at it.
He uses some guide from his mother.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always correct.
No.
Because he also doesn't use it correctly sometimes. And so you're like, sir, you just checked on your babies. You may think that they're dead, but they're sleeping.
It's just sleeping.
Do not manipulate the situation when you go to the guide to find out what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. just not great work overall.
Also, I loved watching the baby puppies, if you could call them that, interact with each other during playtime, and like how their bodies would morph and change. And it's like, you got certain things from mommy and daddy. This cartoon show was not messing around when they were like, these two characters are going to have children.
Oh, yeah. No, the show implied over and over again that Rainicorn and Jake fucked.
Yeah.
Like, it makes this case numerous times over the course of the show. I mean, because from like the first episode, they had been in a relationship.
Yeah.
Like, this is like one of the most stable relationships on the show.
It's always in the background. It's always there.
Yeah. I mean, it's more.
And now it's front and center, and you're like, oh, right, this is really a thing.
Right. I mean, it's more prominent in episodes that we have not watched, but yes.
I mean, that's valid. I can't know what I haven't seen, so.
Right. Yes.
From what I've seen, it's been in the background, not really there. Don't make a liar out of me, Drew.
Just a gentle correction. Yeah, and I like the design of the pups in this episode. You know, one of them being like very like round and kind of squishy, and another one being like very long, and one being like not quite sure which end is the butt.
Yep.
Yeah, and I do.
I liked when Finn showed up and his shirt said, I forget what it said, but it was upside down, and I'm like, why is the text upside down? Did Finn decide I'm gonna wear a shirt so I can read it at all times instead of having to struggle to read it upside down?
That would not surprise me. That would just truly not surprise me.
It said uncle something. I just can't remember what the other word was. Or something uncle. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
I think it was like world's best uncle.
Something like that. It was just like... But, like, we haven't really seen this side of Jake before. Like, Jake's been generally very, you do your own thing. I will advise you, but I won't push you about anything. He's not been very, like, overly protective to the point of, I need to make sure I'm in control of everything.
Right.
And so to see him do that is quite the change.
Right. Well, I think like the beginning of the episode, saying like, "Hey, wouldn't mom be proud of you?" And like putting that spotlight on like parents that are just not around anymore and can like correct you on what you're doing, and you kind of just have to like wing it for yourself. And putting that pressure on yourself. Especially Jake, someone who has like struggled to grow up in like a really tangible way, and that all manifesting in like this overprotective, trying to be what he imagines his mom is, you know?
Yeah, to the point of he's not even sleeping, he's hyper vigilant, and it's like, buddy, you need to sleep.
Like, sleep. Yeah.
Go sleep.
Like, Rainicorn isn't stressing herself out like this.
Yeah.
And
then like he goes to read them a book, but it's a very inappropriate book, so he just throws it into the yard, and it gives the foxes the idea to try and attack them.
The fox is going like, I don't know anything about this, but I would like to eat a baby. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the idea.
Yeah. And I love the anime ending at the end of like this kind of like kind of like Power Rangers riff, like Voltron riff.
Yeah.
Very fun. And like really sweet. Like turning into the skit of like Rainicorn is quasi like Korean.
Yes.
And them by nature being part kind of Korean.
I mean, listen, anything's possible on Adventure Time.
Yeah. But also, the puppies are aging really fast. Really very fast. Like, at this rate, they're going to be dead in like a
year.
Yeah.
And maybe that was Adventure Time's way of writing them into the story and writing them out of the story.
Yeah. But we did get to hear the first one of the puppies voiced by Christian Shaw.
Yes. She's the greatest.
Oh, she's so good.
She truly is. Like, I would love to have a conversation with her just to see where it goes. I just want to have a short conversation. I just want to see where it goes.
So let's move on into the next episode, which is Bad Little Boy.
Bad Little Boy.
Bad Little Boy.
We get to see Fiona and Cake again.
Fiona and Cake. Love Fiona and Cake. Ice King is still up to his tricks of trying to kidnap princesses.
Yeah, and he creates this story, and everyone else is like, "But it needs romance." He's like, "No, it doesn't."
It doesn't. Yeah, I love that Marceline just spies on Ice King now.
Yes.
Apparently, just spends her time invisible around him. Just see what will happen. Yeah, yeah.
We
But
truly love it. It's hilarious.
it's so funny.
And that Marceline comes up with a male version of herself for Fiona
Mhm.
and Cake. Um
Yeah,
Marshall Marshall Lee, which if you like really stretch it, it's Marceline.
yeah. Mhm. Uh, voiced by Donald Glover.
Yes. Greatest thing ever.
Oh, it's so good. Um, but yeah, I love the story as being strictly from Marceline's vantage point, as opposed to like
Mm,
um, the first Fiona and Cake episode, which was very much from Ice King's standpoint.
yes.
And here we have an understanding of Adventure Time as Marceline sees it,
Mm-hmm.
um, and especially like um, like Marshall Lee's relationship with like Fiona and Cake, and also you know Princess Bubblegum, Prince Bubblegum, or what is it, Prince Gumball, um, and just
Yeah.
like kind of like getting an idea of like how Marceline feels about all this at where she's at right now, and like Gumball being like a really interesting case of like how the way that Marceline feels about Princess Bubblegum. Uh,
Yeah, you really
how
get that in
yeah,
that dynamic.
or like the way that like Marceline perceives that Bubblegum feels about her at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, as portrayed in that first scene of Gumball just having no patience for this. Also, I had to go back and check to make sure that this whether or not this came out before Carmilla with
Okay.
like cream puff references. um, this came out before Carmilla, so unrelated. But uh, vampires making cream puff jokes at a very bright and colorful person that they're attracted to. Mm, okay.
Anyways,
Anyways,
it's a very I like that we're getting to see a little more of Fiona's world and that we get to see it from Marceline's perspective because we don't really necessarily get to focus on Marceline in that way very often. And it might be this alternate reality, whatever, but it's still very tuned into Marceline's view of, like you said, of everything going on Adventure Time, and how she interacts with Finn and Bubblegum and things like that. So it's a very fun little episode.
yeah. Well, like everything that's just like from the Bad Little Boy song on in this episode of Marceline. Not you can see that like Marceline does not quite understand why Finn hangs out with her, like
Yes. Yep.
in a very like loner rocker girl way.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, Marshall's like, listen, I'm bad. Why are you hanging out with me? I am not good for your reputation. I'm not good for your life. Go away.
Could literally kill you.
Go away. But I like bad little boy.
Right. Well, it's that push and pull of it of like Marshall Lee convincing Fiona to hang out with him, but also, why would you ever agree to that?
He doesn't even know what he wants, aka Marceline doesn't even know what she wants.
Right, and it's very much like the depressed teenage girl thing, you know.
I was about to say it's very much a trauma response in the sense of she's had so many people either disappoint her or fall away from her that she's like, I want that interaction, but I have to protect myself, so please don't get too close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
So for next week. So, next week we're going to be talking about episode 14, Simon and Marcy.
Mm-hmm.
Episode 28, Be More, and episode 29, Sky Witch. So, fun stuff. Very emotionally impactful next week, though.
Very emotional what?
Very emotionally impactful.
Okay.
So
good to know. Oh, we're going to have an emotional week next week. Okay. Fun times.
Fun times. So let's move on to we're picking Dimension 20 back up after a couple weeks off with season 1, episode 4, Rumble Road.
Yes.
So this is another battle episode, big battle episode. Kind of pushes their physical sets a little more in fun ways, where
it did not disappoint.
Where the bad kids have stolen a car from a pack of tiefling greasers and are racing down the highway.
Which, not to go to the end of the episode, but to go to the end of the episode, they like go through this whole battle, and then at the end of the episode, they realize, crap, we had things we needed to ask this guy that we just smoked. Like, these quote unquote kids are just like, they're so cool, but they're also so dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I understand why they did what they did, because, like, obviously they had to, but at the same time, it's like, you could have maybe just maimed him a little and then asked questions. Johnny, you had questions for him.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Johnny Spells.
It's being so wrapped up in, like, the actual battle. Like, it's in a strictly mechanical way, like, it's like being high on like that adrenaline, and you can't come down from that.
Yep.
You just have to go.
And it's in the vein of Gorgug, he gets rage. He has rage.
Oh, yeah.
And then when he comes down from rage, he cries. That's what this is. That's what it is. They're in rage mode the whole battle, and then they come down from it and they cry because they realize that they didn't accomplish the things they needed to accomplish by going into battle.
Yep.
Gorgug. Oh, Gorgug.
Yeah. But like this is the Fig hour. Like this is
yes,
is doing stuff. She's got things
Fig
to
is
do.
doing stuff. But Fig is able to get away with doing stuff because of who Fig is, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And then what's his name ends up becoming the master of the bike.
Oh yeah. Fabian getting the demonic bike. Yes.
And the demonic bike trying to convince him to work on his love life instead of worrying about, other things.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Get her on the bike. Let her wrap her arms around you. And like you have to like sit back and think for a moment that this is all in the mind of what's his name. He has created this idea. Like he's like,
Yeah.
oh, I think I'm gonna make this demonic bike be very interested in your love life.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, because the important thing to remember about Dimension 20 is this is a actual play comedy show. You know,
Yes.
like
Yes.
these are improvisational comedians, improvisational actors. So like, it's always the joke. They're always looking for the joke.
Yes. I mean, why am I blanking on every character's name today? But what's his name is like, oh, I'm just gonna hop in your backpack and vomit in your backpack this time. Like, he's like, because I get excited and I vomit. Because they find the names of the two girls that he's been looking for. Oh man.
But bringing up Brennan, I like the I like the transformation of his Johnny Spell's voice in this episode from like the last time we saw Johnny of like cool greaser
Yes.
to in this episode like fawns to his most logical extreme.
Yeah.
Just every like 50s kind of like greaser kind of remark you can think of.
Yeah.
Like every like and just like taken to like the max. Like of like like punching the end of every sentence with like daddy or daddy-o of like
Yep. Yeah.
and it's just such a fun escalation of that voice. And just like the increasing like more and more ludicrous interpretation that Brennan has of that character.
Yeah.
Where like by the end he is just like the most cartoonish version of himself.
Yes. But like the players definitely handled this battle so much better than they did the cafeteria battle. It was very fun to have them like try moves that they now are a little more familiar with that their characters could probably actually do.
Yeah.
Instead of messing it up and killing themselves. You know, people came close to dying, but they didn't die.
They didn't die. Well, like there's multiple instances throughout the episode where they make objectively cool rolls.
They do, yeah.
Like there's one point where there's a like a Kristen and add-on like 1-2 punch of Kristen casts a spell and then add-on like looks out the window and does like another spell. And it is like one of the coolest things in the entire episode. Like it's very rad.
Yes, it is. And like I mentioned to you before we started recording, one of my favorite moments is Fabian's like, all right, can I jump over the car and like, you know, get that guy in a sneak attack? And Brennan's like, sure, let's try it. Let's roll it. Let's see. And he rolls a really good roll. And he's like, you know, jumping over tables, can't do it, but over a car, no problem. It's just so funny because like you can see that he's happy that he got a very good roll, but he's also like thinking back to, okay, I just tried to do this previously and it went terribly.
Yeah. Well, like there's a lot of like really good like support work happening. So like, Fig comes to mind really strongly of like her utilizing bardic inspiration a bunch throughout this episode.
Yeah,
It's
she
also
gives
just like
bardic
very cool.
she gives
Where,
bardic inspiration to like pretty much everybody at some point.
yeah, and it's like it's just a cool like acting thing for Emily to do, of just winking at people.
Yeah. Yeah, and at one point she, they're turning to their friends and they're like, "All right, you're low on health, so I have an ability to increase your health. Like I'm going to do that." And like it's like, "Okay, we've learned. We can't just be in it for ourselves. We have to work together on this."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it definitely shows like, um, not just the way that like the characters themselves are leveling up, but like the players too are like learning from like what what they have not done as proficiently.
And I like there's a moment where they're like, all right, they've looked over Johnny's spells and they found all his stuff, blah blah whatever. And they're like, are we gonna go to the police about this? And Riz is like, the police? We are not going to the police. We need to gather this stuff and get the hell out of here. Like he's like, don't you know the police will just make it worse? Like he's
Yeah.
like, we're not calling the police. We just killed 3 people. And then they come across a family that had just gone out for ice cream, and it was the family that had passed by earlier. And it was such a funny way to end the episode where they're in the car because they convinced the family, let's go for ice cream again. and then prior to that with the car, Brennan has to do a roll to determine whether the car blows up or not. And I forget who says it, but they're like, that's so cool that you have to roll to find out if the car's gonna blow up. And it's like, yeah, that's how this game works.
Yep. No, one other cool thing that I really liked was Brennan's use of the identify spell. And particularly like how Brennan decides the identify spell is going to sound as like this very posh British man.
Yes.
Like very posh librarian. It's so good.
His demonic bike voice is really good too.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
It's terrifying, actually. Oh, and then at one point, Fig is like, "Oh, can I play music?" And Brennan's like, "Yeah, go for it." And everyone hasn't caught on to the fact that it's actually a move of hers. Like they're like, "Oh, we thought you were just doing a victory dance." Like and the fact that she picked a song from Green Day, me, who's a fan of Green Day, was just like, I like this.
Yeah. No, here's the thing. Emily's insane. But she's also like very she has like very specific ideas to execute in D&D. Like she has like such a specific framework that she always does, which is what makes her like a really good player.
Yeah.
No, I came across a video that I almost forgot about of Brennan was having like an off the mic conversation with Brian Murphy, who plays Riz, and they were talking about Emily, and Brennan goes, "Emily is one of the best D&D players I've ever seen. Endlessly creative, a genius. She was also sent from hell to kill me."
Yeah. Yes.
Which is whenever you see like interactions between Emily and Brennan, I want you to keep that in mind. That Emily is a demon sent from hell to kill Brennan.
Which makes sense for the character that she has created for this campaign.
Yes. But also just in general.
Yes, I know, but I'm just saying, like, it adds to her character
Yeah.
for this campaign.
Oh.
Tea time. I'm intrigued to find out what tea time is.
No.
Anyways.
This is such a fun season. I really love it.
It was definitely a fun episode. I really, really enjoyed myself. I am enjoying myself, especially overall too. Like, and I think
Right.
part of that's because it is all this like magic and fantasy stuff, and I'm like, I know from the back of my mind, D&D very much deals in that kind of stuff a lot, but I love getting to see it like play out in story mode. Like, I like that, but I also like the battles too because they're so much fun and they're intriguing.
Right. Well, like the great thing about Fantasy High is it's all magic, it's all fantasy elements, but it's all very palpable,
It's melodramatic.
Yeah, it's melodramatic. Well, because it all is within that,
High school
80s
framework.
high school veneer.
Yeah.
So it's all just like very grounded in a weird way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's move on to our next actual show of the week, which is The Fall of the House of Usher, which we are circling back around to in earnest here.
Yes.
So we both finished the series.
Yes.
And so let's start here. So have you seen all the Flanagan series?
Except for Midnight Club or whatever it's called.
Yeah. So how would you rank these?
Honestly, one of my absolute favorite series from Flanagan is Midnight Mass. And my roommate and I go back and forth on this a lot because she's like, no, Hill House is the best. Hill House is the best. I'm like, Hill House is great. Don't get me wrong. I was like, but I don't know why, but like Midnight Mass was just so captivating for me. And I found it very interesting and it really just resonated with me a bit more. I was like, Hill House was definitely close second. Now I'm like, Hill House and Usher are pretty tied because they were very, very good. And I feel like those three Flanagan series are like somewhere in the top three, but I can't determine yet which one's like 1, 2, and 3 because they're all threes just so good. But I very, very much enjoyed myself watching Usher. I was on the edge of my seat pretty much the whole time. Some of the deaths, though I knew they were coming, obviously, because we know from the beginning they're all going to die. It's still, some of them were very shocking still. And I was very sad about Lenore. I was very, very sad about Lenore.
Yeah.
Because for some reason in my brain, I didn't consider that death happening.
Right.
Because we're like, oh yeah, all the bad ones are dying. Lenore's good. She's fine. She's not involved.
Yeah, well, yeah, I found Lenore's death particularly devastating.
Yep.
Like it actually made me cry for a minute while it was happening. Because the thing with how death is utilized in Fall of the House of Usher is they are entirely preventable deaths.
They are.
That are brought on by the people. Like they willingly choose to walk into the mousetrap, you know?
Right. And
Um,
and Verna even says to the one that sticks in my mind is Verna talking to Frederick, where she says to him, you know, your death didn't have to be this, but then you went and fucking tortured your wife.
yeah.
And I decided, no, we're going to destroy your body too. Like
Mm.
that whole conversation, it's like, okay, sir, you could have died a less gruesome way, but you decided to be a dick.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the way with like a lot of the deaths. Like
Yeah.
I heard a conversation that Verna has with like Perry and Camille. Of like
Mm-hmm.
you could have died peacefully in your sleep in your bed,
Yep.
but you made a series of decisions that led you here through your own self destruction, and because you are inherently selfish people.
Yeah.
You are fundamentally this.
Yep.
But the thing that makes Lenore's death so tragic, even though I knew it was coming, even though I knew this was a definite possibility,
Yeah.
is Lenore was the one person who did not deserve to die.
Right. And
Um,
Verna even says that. She's like, you're not the cause of your death. Your grandfather is. Your father is. These are the deaths. Your death is being caused by their actions. Um,
yeah. Whereas everyone else dies as by bad decisions that they have made uh, cataclysmically up to this point.
mhm.
Lenore has made all of the right decisions.
Yeah.
She has never strayed from a right and proper path.
Right. And the big thing about her legacy and her story is that her final act before she passes away was to stand up to Pym and say, no, what I said to the media and the police already is what's sticking because it's the truth. And so the fact that she decided not to give in to the family's way of doing things and hiding things under the rug, she started a domino effect of goodwill towards other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what her legacy is that her actions, her getting her mother out of that home allowed her mother to heal and become a better person and use the money that she inherits to help others.
Yeah.
You know, and so like it's like Verna said, she's like you saved one person, but that person ends up saving hundreds and then thousands and then millions. And it's like that's the that's the stark contrast between Lenore and the rest of her family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Where they killed millions, she saved millions.
Yeah.
um but I said in my I stated this in my review is that of all of the deaths, they were all terrible and they all deserved it. But I really started to really feel for Leo Napoleon. And it's not just because I love Rayo Coley. Like that was part of it. Like I love that actor. But his story seemed a little less sinister and just more tragic. Um, he allowed the drugs to control his life, and that's what caused him to make bad decisions like killing his boyfriend's cat and then trying to replace the cat so his boyfriend doesn't find out that he killed the cat, which ended up driving him insane and making him kill himself. But like I could commiserate with that one a little bit more than any of the other ones.
Yeah. Well, like the thing about Leo's death was that he had taken drugs to such an extent that it had fundamentally warped his sense of reality.
Yep.
Where he hadn't killed his boyfriend's cat. The other cat didn't exist. He didn't actually get a new cat. Like, um, everything that he thought was true wasn't at the end of his life.
Yeah.
Um, and so his final act raging against something that didn't exist and falling to his death. Like, it is such a, you know, a point of like deep shame, you know? Like,
Yeah, and I've seen people in my own life that have dealt with addiction, and so like I feel like maybe that's why I was a little bit more compassionate towards him and his journey versus his siblings because like I'd seen what drugs can do to people. Granted, he did that to himself. He put himself on that path, but it's still a little more understandable than I'm just power hungry, and so I will stop at nothing to get the results I need for my medical study, his sister, um including putting the device in my girlfriend after she's dead.
yeah.
Like things like that, or like, destroying other people's lives in order to create a truth that I want it to be, Camille, or like just being a stupid, spoiled brat and having a party because I want to, even though daddy said no.
Mhm.
And not taking the time to understand the family business so he doesn't know what's really in those water tanks on the roof. Like these other people, like but there's something a little more understanding and compassion leaning with regards to people that have a drug addiction, because yes, they made the decision to start the drug, but the drug was so potent and so addictive that they stopped having control over their own actions. um and part of that is the father's fault,
Yeah.
like because he refused to admit how addictive this drug is.
Mhm.
And then his son went and started using a version of the drug that was like made for recreational purposes, and it just fucked his brain.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. But
And I anyway, sorry.
all of the deaths have like a very palpable sympathy to them, though, or
Mm.
not sympathy, but compassion. Um, because you've seen like all of their deaths. Verna painstakingly like lays out a parachute for them. Like
Mm-hmm.
this does not have to be the way that it is. Like going back to like you could just die in your bed. That is
Mm-hmm.
that is still a possibility for you. Like, and her like always like leaving them the possibility. Like, and like that's the important thing here of like they don't have to die.
Right.
She doesn't have to kill them. Or they don't
Well,
have to kill themselves. You
yeah,
know.
I mean, technically, if we're gonna go the route of she doesn't have to kill them, then it has to go all the way back to 1979 with with Roderick making that initial agreement with her. So if
Right.
Roderick had never made that agreement, then his family would have been safe.
Well, not that they don't have. Maybe not that they don't have to die, but like they don't have to die this way. You know.
Yeah,
Like
that's true. Yeah, that's a bit more like, yeah.
like during Perry's episode of like Verna going, you could just leave.
Mm-hmm.
You could just leave. You could just go. And her saying like the same thing to Camille of like, you could just turn back now.
Right, especially because like when she was the security guard, she's like, "You don't have access to, you don't have permission to be in there," and she's like, "But I do because it's my dad's place," and she's like, "Doesn't matter," and it's like her subtle way of saying, "You can
Yeah.
go home, and don't go near the monkeys, and you won't die this horrific death."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like I like the way that Verna is so persistent with like giving them off ramps.
Yeah.
You know. Um.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I enjoyed the conversation that she has with Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
Where like she really is like giving him like a bail card, you know? Like, she is like, hey, you could just, like, avoid what comes next. Which I
Yeah.
found really interesting.
Right, and I found it very interesting that he didn't take her up on the offer.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like, "No, I'm good.
Good.
Just go to jail." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah. And I view that as, like, her viewing Arthur as kind of a kindred spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Two people who have brought upon death in certain ways, but are
Mm-hmm.
they have a similar morality about it, you know?
Yes, and I saw it coming. The ending for Roderick and Madeline, like I saw it coming. I saw, especially with all the talk about ancient Egyptian customs and things like that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
saw those things coming. I also saw it coming, the revelation of what exactly it was that they did initially.
Right.
Because I'm like, well, obviously they had to get rid of what's his face because they became the heads of this company. So like it's not this guy's company, it's their company. So like they had to have done something. And I'm like, they keep referencing that wall, and I was like, he's in the wall. Like there's no other way about it. Like he's in the wall.
Right.
you know. But I still enjoyed the journey to really actually see it play out. Flanagan does a great job of like setting that up and pacing it perfectly to where it doesn't feel like we're getting info dumped at any one point about any of these stories. I like that it's a narrative being told between Roderick and Augie, and that it's slow. It's one step at a time. He's like, all right, I'm going to tell you everything about my kids, and then I will tell you what I've done. And so Augie has to sit around for all of it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like it's being like pushed on us.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing I was wondering after I watched it. Do we believe that the like the ghosts of his children are real, that he sees them? Or
I think so.
yeah, because I was really
They're a
thinking about,
manifestation of his guilt.
yeah. Well, I was thinking about this because, like, as Augie says, Roderick knows things about like his children's lives that like he shouldn't know naturally. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and Roderick says it's because they told me.
Right.
So either that is true, and his children actually told him what happened after they died, or he is imagining them. In which case, that puts all of this into like an uncomfortable, unreliable narrator territory.
It could be both.
It could be both.
I think having the unreliable narrator would be an even more intriguing way of looking at it, because it really it pushes it more into Poe territory.
Right.
Because the thing with all the works of Poe is that each narrator cannot be trusted to be telling the full truth, or like telling the whole, seeing the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that's the case, then like that definitely jives with what Flanagan is trying to do, which is to modernize the stories and poems that Poe wrote and make them, into this story about this family.
Yeah.
So that's that is something I didn't think about, that like he's an unreliable narrator.
Yeah. Because I was really thinking about like the differences in like the stories he tells about his children versus the ones he tells about himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where it is all like warts and all with like his children, but him and like him growing up is more idealized.
Rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a good guy who had good intentions, and then just got led astray over the years.
I also, though, wonder if part of that's not also his deteriorating mental state as it is.
Right.
Because he does have this mental disorder that his mother had. And so then you're like, okay, well, is how much, like you said, you have to question, okay, how much of this is reality? How much of this is real?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was, I also love that the ultimate, like, legacy end of this story is that the victims, the most direct victims of the Usher family, are the ones that prospered from their demise. And they
Right.
took that prosperity and they turned it around and changed how the Usher name is seen. They tried to make reparations for what Roderick and Madeline did as a company and as people. And I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I also loved, I was thinking about this when we watched it last week, that Augie's informant was no one.
yeah.
I was like, wouldn't it be so funny if Augie just made it up? And he did, just to screw with them.
It's such a beautiful, like, tactic. Like, it's the perfect way to get the truth to come out, because especially when you're dealing with people like Roderick, where they are paranoid about everything, if you tell them that someone close to them is speaking to the federal government, he's going to flip out.
Yeah.
And the truth is going to come out in its own way, because he's going to stop being as careful as he has been in the past. And that's exactly what happened.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. I was like, it's either going to be Lenore or no one.
I thought it was Lenore for the longest time. I thought it was Lenore. And then I'm like, well, no, I think it's just nobody. Like, yeah. I don't think it's anybody. But yeah, watching the slow descent of Freddie from somewhat stable but stupid to completely insane by the end was a roller coaster ride.
You know what? I've never watched.
What are you doing there? Why didn't you have your ring? Okay, sir, your wife should actually stay in a therapy place. No, she's coming home with me. I'll make sure she gets the therapy she needs. Instead, he just gives her nightshade. Like,
yeah.
What?
No. I've never watched Succession, but Freddie going, I am the Ascendant, well,
it was very much
I am the Ascendant Usher is very much like, I am an eldest boy.
I am the eldest boy. Yes. He is very much in line with oh god, what's his name? Kendall, thank you. I was like, Randall, that's not right. I know it's dull at the end. I was like, Kendall Roy, because that's where the R came in. Kendall Roy, because yes, they're very much self-important, self-entitled boys that have lived with a silver spoon in their mouth the entire time they've been alive, so yeah, I got that vibe too. I was just like, oh, you're like the Roys.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that made some of the deaths more tragic was that some of them were actually close to each other in different ways. I think especially Camille and Leo were very close to each other. And so, like, you could just see how devastated Leo was by Camille's death. And even before Camille died, he was being forced to be the public face of the family. And you kind of wondered if they weren't doing that because, oh, look, he's not a middle-aged white dude. He's got a little color to his skin. He's not, he wasn't born with this money. He discovered he had money when he was like 20, blah, blah, all this stuff. Like, they were definitely exploiting his background to like make themselves look better or whatever.
Yeah.
And like you could tell that just fucks with him. And so like he deteriorates fast because you're just like he had to be the public face of the family, which he didn't want to do. And then Camille dies, and then they're like, you get to be the face of the family and announce that Camille's dead. And he's like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, it was just, I really felt for him. I was like, poor guy. Like, just poor guy.
Yeah.
He just wants to play video games. Okay, just let him play video games. Let him throw money at people that make video games and believe that he's the one that made them.
Yeah.
that line from Camille when she's just like, he's like, I make video games, and she goes, no, honey, you throw money at people that make video games.
Oh no, what's she call him? Video game Gatsby.
Yeah. But and Camille, she was interesting. The only character I absolutely hated, and I don't really hate characters, like I try not to hate characters, was Tammy. I just had no compassion or sympathy for that woman at all. Like,
No.
at all. I'm like, you are a dick to your husband.
You are a dick to everyone.
You are a dick to your family. No offense, you deserve it.
Yeah.
You're a dick, and then you have a little tantrum because I didn't get what I wanted. Her and Freddie, like, them two are I have the least sympathy for, and it's funny that they're the ones that were 100% Usher. Like,
Right. Well, and they're the ones who experienced decline, right?
yeah.
Like, they're the ones who were there with Roderick as he like took power and got more famous and got more powerful and got more money.
Yeah. The other one more thing before we like move on, but I read this assessment of the series, and one of them, and it was talking about Annabelle Lee and the like conversations that he has with Augie about Annabelle specifically, and how the way he talked about Annabelle, it was like he was creating an alternative version of Annabelle, that one where she was much kinder and he was much kinder to her. And so then so it goes back to the unreliable narrator, where you're like, it made me question a lot of the flashback stuff, because I'm like, how nice was he actually during that time?
Right.
Because after reading that, I was like, oh, that's his fantasy version of his relationship with Annabelle. What was the reality? What was his reality? To be fair, he's always had a weird, creepy relationship with Madeline. So, like, I couldn't imagine, like, it not being weirder than what he portrayed it as. Because he kind of made it seem like Madeline wasn't always around, but, like, when she was, she'd sometimes say something. And it's like, no, I feel like she was in his ear 24/7. Like,
right. No.
Girl can't leave him alone. She doesn't want to get married. She doesn't want to have her own kids. She just wants her brother. It's a little creepy.
Right.
Anyways.
Yeah.
But great series. I really enjoyed it.
Yes. So let's move on to Our Flag Means Death, Season 2, Episodes 6 and 7, Calypso's Birthday, and Man on Fire.
Yes.
So I was only able to watch part of Calypso's Birthday.
Did you at least get to see the party?
I saw a little bit of the party.
I will say, in Episode 6, one of my favorite things prior to the party is the scene where they're in the village, when Ed and Steed are in the village, because the children they're talking to are Tyka's daughters. And the one with the short hair is Matawa. And Matawa, in like all the videos I've seen that Taika has posted of his kids, Matawa is this sarcastic, bitchy little queen. And I love her. Like, she's amazing. And so, like, her in that scene is she's looking at him like, you're not this character, you're my dad, and I think you're obnoxious. Please stop. Like, the entire scene. Like, her bitch face just did not go away. She was just like, what are you talking about knives to me for? But anyways, that's just a little like insider information. Don't pirate, kids. But I'm sad you haven't watched all of episode 6 yet, because Izzy in drag is one of the best. Well, drag makeup is one of the best things I never thought I needed. And then he sings Lovey and Rose, and it's gorgeous. Because Con O'Neill can actually sing. And so they went to him and they're like, I don't know how comfortable you feel with this. And he was like, sure, why not? And he learned how to sing it in French. And he sings it. And it's beautiful. It's very much a like defining moment for Izzy's journey, I feel. Like, you know, we talked last week about how we don't feel like his redemption has been earned because it's so fast and it seems to come out of nowhere. I feel like this episode kind of like helped us to feel like it was earned a little bit, because he does, or these 2 episodes, I should say, because he does go out of his way to try and help each of the crew members with different things that they've got going on. We saw it a little bit with Lucius in the previous episode, but like in this episode, he sees Wee John putting on makeup, and so he asks him, he's like, what are you doing? And Wee John tells him, and instead of like mocking him like old Izzy would have, they end up putting makeup on his face as we see the next moment we see them. You know what I mean? So like,
Right.
It's one of those moments that you're like, oh, that's really good. You know, that's really nice. I really enjoyed that. Also, we find out that the reason we have not seen Lucius and Pete for most of the episode is because they were having engagement sex for 24 hours and did not get disturbed. So they come out and everyone's up on deck being attacked by some rando, the dude at the beginning of the episode. They're being attacked by this rando guy, and Lucius and Pete are like, what is going on? We need to get weapons. We need to help them. But like, they also mentioned we've been having sex for 24 hours. We don't know what is going on. And it's like, it's one of those moments of you're like affectionately saying, get it, sluts. Like, you're like, get it. You're like, good job. Good for you. You're having sex. Good for you. But it was interesting to see the situation come where this guy has attacked the ship because he's mad at Blackbeard for some things that Blackbeard did earlier in the season, which again, this season has been so rushed that like some of it you're like, wait, who is this guy? And like you have to really like push yourself to remember a throwaway line from Blackbeard in one of the first episodes where he's like, oh, such and such guy has a record and I'm breaking it because I'm bored. So it's like,
right.
Okay, so he's broke this guy's record and now he's pissed off. But he's like some like musician dude. Like it's weird. I don't know, it's weird. Anyways,
right.
But it's the point in the season when I'm like, okay, the season's great. Don't get me wrong. The episodes are great. But like some of these stories you can tell they were like, okay, here's everything we want to do in 8 episodes, but we only have 8 episodes. Right. So everything's on fast mode, and so like Steed and Ed are faced with the decision of, okay, who's going to deal with this guy, because Steed has become more confident as a captain, you know, so he's like, well, maybe I should, since now I'm a pirate captain, I'm a real captain. and Ed's kind of just hanging back because he's like, I don't really want to be a pirate anymore. Like, he's had this discussion off and on all season. Even the end of last season, he was like, I kind of just don't want to do it anymore. And he even tells Steed, if you cross this line and kill someone for the first time as a pirate, it's going to fuck with you. There's no turning back. And
Right.
so, like, you have him warning Steed not to do it, and then Steed does it. So it's like, well, buddy, you didn't listen. And then they immediately go back to partying and stuff because the dude is gone, the danger is past, and they go back to partying, and Ed and Steed go and have sex because why not? Because why not? I mean, when tensions are high and we don't want to think about the things that we just did, we have sex.
Right.
And then obviously the next episode is the next day. The cool light of morning. What the fuck did I just do? In many different formats. What the fuck did I just do for Steed? Because he's like, I just killed a guy. And Ed's like, I just had sex with Steed and we didn't talk and we said we were going to go slow and that's not slow. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I was saying to my friends that, like, this show is great and these guys are lovable. I love them, but they are the most emotionally stunted men on the planet. So instead of talking through their issues that they have, Steed becomes his pompous asshole that he does whenever he gets positive attention, because he gets positive attention for killing a pirate, because hello, that's cool. And Ed immediately is like, no, I'm gonna go to the opposite end of that and run away. All the while, everyone else is hanging out at the Republic of Pirates, just having a good old time. And we see Jackie again, and the Swede, because he's now Jackie's 20th husband. And it's a lot in the span of 30 minutes. And I literally was like, this is the worst episode of this season, because everything's super rushed, and it's very obvious that everything is rushed.
Right.
But and then at the end of the episode, and then we see Zhang and Ricky. Remember Ricky, the guy that got his nose cut off?
Mm-hmm.
He comes back and he's partnered up with Zhang because Zhang's like, I could use your fleet for whatever it is that she's got planned. We never really know what she had planned, but he double crosses her and blows up her fleet while she's on the Republic of Pirates with the Revenge crew. And so that's where the episode ends, is with her fleet being, going up in smoke, basically. And so the finale is going to be interesting. So Ed is off being a fisherman. Steed is basking in the fact that he's now a famous pirate, but he's also mad at Ed for running off. And Zhang just lost her entire crew. Chaos.
Yes. So let's move on to Loki season 2, episode 3, titled 1893. Which I did not watch.
It was an episode. Again, I don't understand what's going on. But I will tell you that Jonathan Majors was in this episode. So they've found, I do remember that they seem to have found a variant of He Who Remains in 1893. And so they were Miss Minutes and Renshaw? No, that's not right. Ren something. Renslayer, thank you. I was like, I'm close. Ms. Minutes and Renslayer go to get him from 1893, and then Mobius and Loki follow them to kind of prevent that from happening, blah, blah, whatever. And that's about all I understood about the episode.
Okay.
I try. I really do. But like I haven't seen season 1. I also just don't care that much about Loki. He's not a character I really care about. But there were some really cool Mobius and Loki moments because them running off doing shit together is fun.
Right. Well, we will touch more on that next week when I catch up.
Yes.
Let's move on to our next show. What the fuck is what? Hang on. My Quantum Leap tweet got liked by David Anders of Alias and Once Upon a Time fame.
Yeah, I love him. And iZombie.
Yeah, and I thought, like, what the fuck? What's happening? What's okay.
As it should.
You know what? Moving on. I can't. I'm talking about right now. Let's move on to our next show. Quantum Leap, Season 2, Episode 3, entitled Closure Encounters, which I thought was a very fun episode.
It was super fun. I loved it.
Yeah. Like, I read a review at Podibo, which was like, it's like Quantum Leap if they tried to do the X-Files, which is a very fun combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
like, I honestly didn't really know where it was going to end up because I was like, it could go it could go any of these like 2 or 3 ways. And so I was like, I'm very invested. I'm not 100% sure of everything. So like, it was fun. I enjoyed the journey.
Yeah. I think it has very good character work. I like the stuff between Ben and Addison, and kind of reconciling with like how their relationship has now changed, and like his line of like, "You buried me, you didn't have to."
Yeah, that was
it
such an emotional delivery too. Like I felt it.
Yeah.
Like it was one of those lines that you were like, "Oof, I felt that."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I like the actual plot of the episode of girl maybe saw a UFO and crashed her car with her best friend, and her best friend had a coma.
Or best friend's dad is funneling drugs, or best friend's dad is working with the government on top secret shit.
Yeah.
So many different things.
Yeah, so many different things. It's all very enjoyable. This episode also brought in Eliza Taylor as Hannah, who is just very charismatic and charming, and she has very good chemistry with Ben.
Also, she seems to know a few things.
Oh yeah, she does a few things.
I mean, I know, but I'm just like, like she seems to know a few things, so that's always fun too.
Yeah, she's clearly a very intelligent character. And I like Taylor's performance here, particularly as she finds a new way to do an American accent that isn't just Clark Griffin, where this is a lot more like high pitched than her work on The 100, which was like a lot huskier. And this is really leaning more into like, closer to like Western American kind of accent of like almost California, So I like her doing a twist on that. And again, she just has very good connection with Ben, like right off the bat.
Yeah, and that's fun to see because he struggles a bit with the sheriff at first. He struggles a bit with the girl at first. So like it's fun to see him walk into this like diner and immediately bam, no awkwardness. The waitress and him banter back and forth, and it's really nice to see that he does have the ability to connect with someone in this realm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this episode also has like a kind of weird 100 reunion between Eliza Taylor and Allison Thornton, who plays the arrested girl in this episode, who were both on
Okay.
the 100 together for like a couple episodes, but it's still fun.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'm really looking forward to like what, because Eliza Taylor is a series regular for the season, so I'm interested in what is coming next for her.
Yeah, like how is she gonna play into the other stories? Like that's what I'm intrigued by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really eagerly looking forward to that.
Mm-hmm.
So our next show is Found, season 1, episode 3, entitled "Missing While Widowed." So I also did not watch this episode. So what did you think?
I liked this one. It was different. So there's obviously the background story of Gabby, her kidnapper, and the little girl that is now Lacey, but back then she was Beth, I believe her name was. And that whole dynamic, like that's definitely an interesting like subplot, but in this episode it's affecting the main plot because Gabby has spoken to him and he said, "Well, you asked for her. That's why I stole her and brought her to the house. Don't you remember?" And so like he tells her a version of the night before the little girl came to the captivity situation, and he tells it in a way that makes it sound like she gave him permission to bring her in order to save her life, but she gave him permission, whatever. But then as the episode goes on and she deals with the case that they're dealing with, she starts to reassess where that information came from, you know? And so like she starts to really see, oh no, I actually didn't ask for this girl to come. He still brought her anyway. And so like the whole episode, she's dealing with Lacey in a way that's very standoffish, and Lacey doesn't know why. And it creates an interesting dynamic.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and the case itself is really interesting. It's a older black man whose partner of so many years has passed away, and he's gone missing, and the doorman is the one that like reports it, and then we come to find out the man's still alive and he's fine, and when he comes back the doorman asks him out on a date. Like it's cute, like it's, you know what I mean, like it's sweet,
right?
But other than that, like I was more focused on the Gabby story part of it, you know.
Right.
Oh, and what's her face, the woman that sits in the bus depot every night.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I think of her name? She apparently has a daughter as well. And the daughter showed up at the office asking for her mother to sign emancipation papers so that she could get financial aid for school. So that was an interesting twist. It was like, wait, what? You have another child? I thought you only had the one child. And it really shows how like her pursuit of trying to find her son negatively affected the lives of the life of her other child, to the point where the girl's like, "You're not even my mother. Like you're not my mom. Like you don't mother me. You've never really raised me. All you cared about was being somewhere else." So interesting developments.
All right. We will touch more on that next week. Let's move on to our last show of the week, which is Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 4, Episode 8, entitled Caves.
Please tell me you watched this episode.
You know I watched this episode. You know I watched this episode.
Well, because I'm like, I'm not going to sit here and have a one-sided conversation about this episode.
No, and this is this is a really good gag of how Star Trek, especially in like the 90s, with like their 24 to 26 episode seasons, would go, hey, we need a thing for this episode, and we're kind of running out of money. It's like, caves. We have a cave set. The caves.
Yeah, they all find out they're getting to do a mission together, and they're excited, and they're like, wait, what's our mission? And they're like, caves. And I'm like, no.
So that is a nice Star Trek deep cut.
It was very funny. I greatly enjoyed it.
Yeah. Yep. And I love the different caves that they did. Different stories in caves. It's just so much fun.
They're like, you what's his name? They're like, you didn't tell me you had a kid. And he goes, well, I'm telling you now.
Telling you now. Yeah. Well, and this is like the first time this season that I feel like the show has really dealt with the fact that with their new roles and their new positions, they wouldn't really see each other as much as they used to.
Mm-hmm.
They wouldn't like hang out the way they used to. But
and I like that it was all a ruse to get them to reconnect with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the end, they were like, "Oh no, we'll just let them keep going for a little bit longer, and then we'll turn their comms back on." Like,
right.
It was so nice to be like, "Oh, this was just an exercise to put them back together."
Yeah.
Showing that friendships are just as important as working relationships when you're in Starfleet.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I really loved Tendy's story of when they got trapped in the elevator, the turbo lift.
She was like, "It was the best day ever."
Like it is really nice, and them like all curled up on the turbo lift together.
Yeah. Oh my god, I thought it was super cute. I was like, "That's a cuddle pile if I ever saw one."
Yes, it's very nice.
And like, I love that they apologized to her. They're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We kept trying to cut you off. That actually was a nice story." And like the goo in the cave is like, no, you need to tell another story. Tell me more cave stories.
Yeah. Just this episode just goes to show that like Lower Decks understands Star Trek in like a really profound way. And continues to just deliver really good deep cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I love this show so much.
Yes. I'm liking it more than I anticipated liking it. So that's something. I really like Tendy. Tendy's very amazing.
Yes, she's very cute. She's just very adorable.
Yes. Yeah. Anyways.
And I did, the thing I liked about Tendy's turbo lift story was that it was like the epilogue to like the first episode of the show.
Oh, okay.
Because like the rest of like the first episode was like Tendy coming on board the ship and you know, them getting into the shenanigans that they see trying to clean up Tendy's story.
So yeah, this was like Tendy saying, well, this is what happened after it went to black.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's cute.
It's very endearing. And I also really enjoyed the animation choices for Tendy's story of like Rutherford's like body design being a little different than the one he is in now,
Yeah,
and like actively trying to match the way it was in the first episode.
that's cool.
I appreciated that attention to detail and to the continuity. When you could easily just not.
Also, honestly, the part that like was I literally had to be like rewind and go back was Rutherford's pregnancy thing. I was just like, "Excuse me, what is happening? What is happening right now?" And of course, it being alien, it like lasts 2 seconds, and then it's, "Oh no, now there's a baby," and it's just like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, yeah. No, and I loved like the new take on that for being different than like on Voyager, Janeway and Paris having a weird alien slug baby together. And this is just like, I mean,
Or like, or like on Next Generation when what's her face ended up getting pregnant without like knowing how, and
right.
then she ended up having a baby, and the child aged really fast.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. It was yeah. The thing about this show is that it's always super silly. Like, yeah, they have some serious moments, but overall, every episode's just a good time. Like, we're just here to have fun.
Right. It's the show's commitment to showing how deeply stupid Star Trek is sometimes.
And it really like is it wants to put forth that this show should not be taken seriously. Like Star Trek should not be taken seriously.
No, no.
Like ever.
Star Trek is both amazing science fiction and also a complete clown show.
Yes. It's like here's the sci-fi, but also here are romance tropes, here are drama tropes, here are we don't even know what this is, but we're gonna throw it in.
Yeah.
They're like, we're just a mixed bag of everything, and you're gonna love it.
Deep Space Nine is like the biggest example of this, where it's like, hey guys, here's like a really serious war arc. And also, what if they just played baseball one episode? Which is a true fact. I'm not making that up.
Well, and I feel like because my knowledge is more strongly centered in Next Generation, but like, you know, they have these serious episodes, and then there's the episode where Picard spends the entire episode in 1940s as like a Sherlock Holmes type character. And it's like, okay, cool. That's what we're doing? Cool.
Cool.
We're just going to solve a fake crime? Cool. That's what we're doing today. Sounds great.
Not to be all kids today, but the current generation audience was not prepared for like the way that Star Trek just went on tangents.
Indeed.
As somebody who tried watching Legacy of live, you're sometimes not, the audience is not prepared.
Well, as someone who tried to watch the campiest version of Star Trek, which is the original series, it we this show goes there sometimes, and then sometimes it's like, oh, here's a big huge lesson about something that doesn't really matter.
Yes.
And you have to be like muddle your way through it all because you're like, this is important. There's some little tidbits of important information scattered throughout,
Right.
but you got to muddle your way through everything else.
So that is our show for this week. Next week, well, it's we don't have anything new coming down, so it's still just what we got.
Same old, same old.
It's what we got. Except Bob's Burgers comes back next week, so yay.
Yay.
Bob's Burgers comes back again. So until next week, Mads, where can we find you online?
On TikTok, Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, you can find me at DorothyNYC89.
Nice. And you can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky. I have a Substack, draconic.substack.com, and I'm also on Serialized, logging all of my TV throughout the week. But do go subscribe to my Substack. I am doing things over there.
Doing things.
Doing things. I think I actually am doing a piece on Adventure Time soon. So
nice.
Eventually. And then sometimes I just do like random episodes. Whatever. Whatever. Yeah. No. The series I have like on just like random episodes is the most chaotic thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
I pick like I randomize a year. I take this week of that year and pick an episode that aired in that week.
Yeah.
Just full chaos.
It's the way to do it.
Yep. And you can follow the podcast on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. And you can find more of our episodes at Apple Podcasts and YouTube, where you can subscribe and leave us a review. You can email us at notanothertvpodcast@gmail.com with any thoughts, comments, questions, listener submissions, goat recommendations, and any show coming up that we should be talking about. Or, you know what, past came out this year. Whatever. Time to fly circle. Until next week, always remember, don't go in the ocean. None of your business. Goodbye.
Goodbye.